There are only two Christmas nativity stories in the Bible, and we tend to hear them both, or parts of them both, this time of year. So far this Advent, the past few weeks, we've considered parts of Luke's nativity story. We've heard Mary's Magnificat, her response to the proclamation that she is blessed with a holy child. We also heard Luke's telling of the angel's proclamation to the shepherds that Jesus was arriving. Today we're shifting over to Matthew, to his story of the proclamation given by an angel to Joseph. It's actually hard to believe we are already at the fourth Sunday of Advent, where the candle and theme are love. If you've been here much at all, you know love is pretty much the theme every week, all year long. Today, though, it's a little different. Our lesson is one of the few stories we have that feature Jesus' dad, Joseph, and maybe the only story featuring Joseph that most of us are familiar with. Sadly, it's also the Bible nativity narrative that may be ridiculed the most, with Joseph taking heat one way or another for believing Mary's pregnant state was just God's doing. There's a wink-wink attitude about it that disrespects Joseph, Mary, Jesus, and God, and the beautiful point of the story, which is love. The ridicule exists because if we insist, as some do, that a primary concern is the story must be understood literally, then that concern clashes for many with modern reason. As modern people, most of us weigh stories by the support they get from empirical facts. And if a story's meaning is supposed to be a literal, historic accounting, we automatically run it through a filter to see if it defies our understandings and experiences in life. Stories purporting to be about human births without human fathers tend to get stuck for many in that filter. They are thought to defy reason. We are, however, free from that filter if the story is considered filled with metaphor, parabolic. The filter then shifts to, can I find meaning in one or more of the symbols in the story? Both the historic and the metaphoric lenses look for meaning with different filters. Those looking through historic lenses of Bible verses tend to get stuck at the filter. Fundamentalists get rid of the filter for themselves by claiming words in the Bible must be taken literally and understood as inerrant, supreme facts which outweigh science and reason. Liberal critics of the Bible tend to claim empirical facts, reason through science and experience, outweigh accepting literal meanings of the words in the Bible nativity narratives. Ironically, many unreasonably accept literalism as the only way to view Bible stories and refuse to consider them as parables. This leads to irrational scoffing of the nativity stories, often resulting in Joseph as the butt of jokes. That liberal critics mock it is doubly ironic, since most seem to love this time of year, which is based on holidays, anchored in the stories being scoffed at. Even beloved secular Christmas stories like Santa rise out of the Christmas holiday love centers, and by the way, those stories defy logic if we take their wording literally. If we think about it, most classic Christmas stories are fantastical, because love is fantastic, and love is so personally and universally indescribable that it has long been explained by humans in metaphor and symbols and stories meant to be rich with meaning, not science or history. Their truth lies not in their literal, factual historicity or scientific proofs, but in the understandings that the words and the stories convey. Getting tangled up in questioning the realness of the events depicted misses the realness of the truth that they convey. That's how it is with the Bible's Christmas stories. In other words, getting bogged down in arguing or laughing off literal readings of them completely misses the point. The point being truth about love. And by love, I mean both God, who is love, and our own desire and care for the well-being of others, the theological definition of love. Please don't hear me wrong. It's okay to understand the Bible's nativity stories as either historic or metaphor. The point of the story is not to be how we come at them. Whether we come to today's lesson believing it literally happened or it is a parable with metaphors, we should end up asking the same primary question. Where is love in Matthew's nativity story? Where is it in the short lesson that we heard Merle just read so nicely this morning? For Christians, it begins with a divine love-centered provision of God's very own Son, Jesus, who's understood by us to be the Christ, the Messiah, God incarnate, love incarnate on earth in our lives. Love gives us love in the story. The first two sentences of our lesson suggest Luke's story starts off with divine and earthly love. The birth of Jesus, the Messiah, took place in this way. When his mother, Mary, had been engaged to Joseph, but before they lived together, she was found to be with child from the Holy Spirit. All the story then goes on to lift up Joseph. It's important to remember it starts off with a reference to his and Mary's engagement, which suggests to us romantic love is a part of the equation. But then right away there's a reference to Mary, to the Holy Spirit, which we can hear as an honoring nod at the start to the female nature and catalyst of the event. Jesus' mother is clearly a female, but the Spirit of God in the Bible is also a feminine aspect of God. Ruach, the Hebrew word in Genesis for the Spirit of God who birthed creation, is a feminine word. We can understand the Spirit as a feminine aspect of God throughout the Bible. Mary is blessed with a child from that feminine aspect of God, the Holy Spirit. The nativity narrative in Matthew begins filled with love. The love of an earthly mother and heavenly mother. And we can even understand this as a subtle reference to the later rebirth of Jesus in Matthew, the resurrection, where two women, both named Mary, are the first to lovingly midwife the information that Jesus came out of the womb of the tomb, resurrected in a new way of living as Jesus Christ, who lives on eternity. We can hear a full circle of love, started with Matthew's Christmas story. Love and Jesus arrived through female images, and Jesus and his love and loving way survived through female images as well. But unlike Luke, who tells us an angel visited Mary with the news of her pregnancy, Matthew has an angel visit Joseph with that news. While a number of modern scholars find that patriarchal and patronizing, we can nonetheless choose to hear it as a liberation lesson. In the telling, Joseph rejects the unloving ways the patriarchy commands. Joseph models for men and all of us how to be on a loving way by rightly and righteously opposing patriarchal rules that oppress women. Those unjust rules in his day called on men to participate in severely punishing a pregnant by another source betrothed woman like Mary. Instead, Joseph acts under God's rules with love towards Mary, accepting the pregnancy and the child is fully his, even while he and we know the son is not of his making. Even before an angel lets Joseph know Mary did not cheat on him, Joseph was, even then, willing to defy the patriarchy. He was flat out unwilling to expose her to public disgrace and planned to dismiss her quietly. And the signs of the situation seem to make it clear Mary had another man. The patriarchal law of the situation made it clear Mary should be severely punished. Despite science, despite law, love, and justice, in the situation made it clear to a righteous man that Mary deserved to be treated kindly. Her well-being needed to matter no matter what. Above the science and the law, Joseph desired and he cared for Mary's well-being. And that may not be the stuff of Hallmark cards, but it is love through, and frankly, quite a touching love story before the angel even shows up. When the angel shows up, when the angel appears and provides the good news of Jesus, the Son of God, origin, Joseph pours out even more love. This love and faith in God leads him to desire and care for the well-being of Mary and her child-to-be. He cares so much. He agrees to marry Mary and help tend to her and Jesus' well-being the rest of his life. He even names and adopts Jesus as his own. And so, whether we think the story actually happened or is parabolic, it's a love story. An unusual one, but a love story all the same. And one of the best in my book, and the oldest Christmas love story on record. In our lesson, God shows divine love through an angel whose message prompts Jesus to love. And of course, God so loved the world, given the Son of God, Jesus. And in response, Joseph models how to follow the greatest commandment by loving God and